Good afternoon. Welcome back to another rendition of the B&H virtual event space. You are tuned into Leica Stories. Special edition today. I don't know how I got both of you guys together, same time, same place. I don't know how we made it happen.
Same time zone.
Same time. That's the important thing, Mark, right there. Because when it's you guys, I never know where you are, where you're going to be. It's like you could be here today, gone tomorrow.
Literally, yeah. Friday morning, I leave. Yeah.
So we just barely got you. And then it's funny because it's like planning with you guys. It's like, all right, well, what country are you in now? What continent? Then we got to run it back. And then Phil comes back and it's like, all right, I'm here, these dates. It's like, it's a full-time job keeping track of you guys.
Yeah. It's like making a movie. Like you got to get the talent wrangled all at the same time if they got to, appear on screen at the same time. So totally. I can probably wave out the window and say hello to Phil from where I sit right now, because he's about, 20 blocks away. So we're close.
Nice.
At a coffee shop,
Well, yeah. as we've already seen, you guys are well acquainted. I want to send a huge thank you, obviously, to Leica for hosting not just this event, but this wonderful series. If you guys don't know who we're talking to today, you better check yourself. We got Mark DePaola, Phil Penman joining. And the reason why, Mark, I'm going to let you handle this part. The reason why we have you guys on together, we've done the one-on-ones with you guys, but you guys actually are, this isn't an act. This isn't just, hey, we're pulling on two Leica photographers. You guys are very good friends.
We actually like each other. Yeah. Like when we see each other on the street, we say hello.
Yeah.
Shake hands. Yeah.
You're cordial.
That's as far as it goes.
Yeah, but you don't have to tell them that, Phil. Just cool. Be cool.
Yeah. I heard you guys are, what is it? No, like sharing diner dates, a lunch together.
Oh yeah. Anytime we can.
Diner dates.
I know.
And Paris, of course, as well.
And Paris, of course. Yeah. I mean, literally, we'll be like, when I say we, I'm talking about Sage, my producer who makes everything happen. And so we're always around the city, and we'll see Phil's like, we'll be in a car and then we'd be like, oh, there's Phil. He's like on the corner there, like looking for the next picture, like it's and that happens on in different countries also. So it's always fun. Yeah.
Gotta love it. So what commonalities other than photography is it that bonds you guys?
I was going to bring something up, Phil. I don't, and we have not discussed this event, so we have no plan or agenda or anything. But in thinking about sort of the commonality, obviously we've got photography and many things, but one that is very important to me that really sort of sets the stage and gives a little insight into who we are. The commonality is in cycling. And you might think, I wanted to hear them talk about cameras and stuff, not cycling. But there's a reason why we're sitting here. And it's got a little bit of New York arrogance, but not in a bad way. I don't mean it that way. But, and I would use different language if this weren't B&H, but I have a tremendous amount of respect. But Phil and I have both a long history of cycling and competitive cycling at very high levels. And we are unrelenting in terms of business ethic and dedication to the craft that is constant, and we work so hard for this. It's not like, oh, you put a fancy camera and a Leica in your hand and all of a sudden. It's all of a sudden. We are so dedicated to this, and it's literally like 24/7, and people don't see that side of it. The overnight flights, the travel, the necessity for recovery, and we are both very tough when it comes to that stuff. Working hard, not giving up, and you don't do well in cycling at all unless you have these qualities, and that's one of the biggest ones that we share. I think you probably feel the same way, Phil, because you know what it is to ride a bike.
Cycling definitely attracts like a certain kind of person. It's like a very, you have to be very, very competitive. And the thing with cycling is like you have to put in the hours. So to be even halfway decent, you'd have to put in like, I'd say 25 to 30 hours a week training on top of what your job was. of just going out there. And the problem is, it's like you could not train for a week and lose so much.
Yep.
And it's like the same with photography, where it's like you don't see the getting up every morning, trying to handle your business, just relentless. It's not just the work itself, it's all everything else that goes into it, the marketing, the putting decks together, the travel. You don't see that side of it when you see the work. And luckily a lot of people are not willing to do the work, which means if you are willing to do the work, you stand a much better chance of making it. But at the same time, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's why we're sitting here, as a result of just relentless work. Phil, to me, is you're the hardest working guy I know, and I know how hard I work. But this guy's up ridiculous hours in the morning. Doesn't matter, the climate. The guys out there in the snow at 4 a.m. waiting for the light to come up, or finding a new location and stuff. And like you say, people won't do it, and which is fine. But it takes that. You don't just get to this point where you're, speaking globally and doing workshops and shooting, without, paying the dues and staying with it. So I just wanted to say
overnight success, right?
Yeah,
30 years later.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Wait, yeah, that's
overnight success. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we were going to get here. It's just going to be like, no, you got to get a different camera. Go shoot something different. I'm glad you started on that note, Mark, because I think a lot of people don't realize that, and they don't realize the work that goes in. And I think cycling is a perfect parallel, because anybody who's ever dedicated themselves to sports, it's that word right there, dedication. I think that's what encapsulates being great at anything, is having the dedication.
Yeah.
And you said it best. I mean, I've been around Phil when it's like, he's never off. He's lining up a shot over here, waiting for the light. He's got somebody 3 blocks away in his viewfinder that he's waiting to walk into that light. And then it's like, he's monitoring his phone. He's like, oh, I got to do this. And I got, and then I got to put this together. And it's like, guy's a machine. So,
Yeah.
and I know that you put the same amount in. I mean, as we kind of joked around to start this whole thing off, you guys are always all over the place, right? That requires an extreme amount of precision, organization, and dedication. And really, in this day and age where we've talked about it, about how saturated the market is and how many people are out there, it's really like crabs in a barrel. People are clawing over each other for jobs and for recognition, for notoriety. You have to be at the top of your game, right?
Of course. Yeah. But people don't want to do it. Yeah. I mean, I saw Phil on the street during the shutdown. When the streets were closed, there's no people on the streets. So I saw on more than one occasion, Phil, over there, down the block, think of that, just, what it took to get up to that. I mean, anybody who was here during that time, it was grim, man. It's, you got, in cycling, you say you got to put your head down and take the pulse, because as people are on your wheel, giving less effort to keep up, they're getting weaker, and as you're pulling them by being in front, we're getting stronger. So you've got to be prepared to do that. It's not a debutante sport, this thing. It may look like it, it's the whole influencer thing, but it's not.
But they want it now, right? They want it now. And now, with the invention of AI and everything, it's scary. People are talking about that stuff where they want to be able to create pictures with AI, and it's like they've completely missed the point.
Yeah,
it's the cheat sheet. They've missed that. The photography is not about that. It's not the end result. It's what goes into getting the result. And sometimes it's not the result that counts. It's the enjoyment or the pleasure of doing the photography in the first place.
The journey
of it.
Well, we were talking about this in the office yesterday, and I think it kind of parallels this, is that as much technology as we get and as advanced as we get, there really is no replicating a human, the way we think, the way we are able to, evoke emotion, the way we are able to show emotion, and what we feel. And we were talking about in regards actually to the build of Leica cameras. You know, we had somebody ask, you know, what's so different? Like, what is it? Like, is it just the hype? Is it like really? And it's like we're sitting there and we get into this conversation about, you know, handcraft, you know, handcrafted items, handcrafted technology that it's just sent on in an assembly line and rubber stamped and what goes into it for a mass market. And then when you get into these more niche boutique markets of items that are the work goes into it. And I think the same can be said for creating art and what you guys do. You guys are so hands-on, you know, even when stuff is being outsourced, has come up in conversations where you get to the point where you're so busy, you have to have other people take on certain tasks for you, but there's still your stamp on it. And you're still vetting people so that the right people in the right positions to do the right things that work seamlessly with your process. Can we talk a little bit about when you guys get to the point of reaching success to where you have to bring other people in? Because a lot of people out there that are watching this or listening to this it's a one-person band, right? They're doing everything.
Yeah, it's
You
tough.
hit a certain point where you can't sacrifice your vision and you can't sacrifice ultimately your voice. But how do you incorporate, you know, Mark, you talked about all the work that Sage does, and we all know, anybody who's ever worked with you knows that Sage is nonstop as well.
Relentless.
Yeah. I mean,
No, in the same way.
but the vision, you know, it's not like if you from the outside looking in, it's not, you know, oh, Mark and Sage, it's still one vision. It's still one cohesive brand. Can you talk about bringing others into that and really making the brand one?
Yeah, I mean, well, you guys, I'll spill the beans now. I'm actually artificial, and I was created. Sage, who's sitting over here, she, you know, that runs the show. So, but you know, we've got people fooled. So, you know, that is starting to work now. Obviously, very kidding. So I joke around a lot. My first response was just raise your prices. Like, you don't need more people, you just need more money. But you know, you can't do it. I can't do Phil. I'm not Phil. He can't do me. He's not me. Although we have a lot of commonality, all that dedication, you know, is the creation of the thumbprint. It's like you can't do it. That's why we're both so successful in the, you know, what I call the EDU sector, the teaching stuff, the master classes, because we have practical information to give, you know, and you know, it isn't just like, oh, you know, what's the hype of Leica? It's like, duplicate it. You show me. You know, I can put up stuff all day long that you can't do. And it's not all me, it's me in a craft, you know, utilizing lenses from, the beginning, 1925, to stuff that's coming out of the machine, you know, today. You know, they create different emotions by the way they render things, combined with the human. And what the story is, like what's the story I want to tell, and the same thing for Phil, right? I mean,
it's a tool, you know, it's an amazing tool, but at the end of the day, it's like you can have the best camera in the world, but if you don't have an eye for a picture, then it's all worthless. For me, it was just simplicity. I found that, like, you know, I've shot with different cameras. I was in the news industry when the first D1 came into the first digital cameras, which in hindsight were incredibly cheap compared to what we're paying now. And you'd think there were a lot more, but it was, it's just a tool. But for me, the simplicity of the camera was what grabbed me, because every camera I used was so convoluted, so many menus, so overcomplicated. And it didn't help me get a better picture. It just came down to the aperture, shutter speed, the ISO, and focus, and how I captured that. And I just wanted a stripped down camera that was just exceptionally beautiful quality and simple to use. And that was it. That's what grabbed me.
Yeah. I would add one thing to that list that Phil just mentioned. It is how to shoot out of focus, because that for me is one of the most important things that I do, is how I render the, sort of the images in the photograph, but also how to create a feeling by things not being too technologically advanced. So I'll use a lens like the 75 Noctilux and make it mine. Sort of like, I call it like wringing in its neck. Like you look at it, it's my work, but it's also like one of the most advanced things. Like that lens is nuts. But it's how you inject your own feeling and your story. I'm a filmmaker, and I say to people all the time in my classes and stuff, it's like, what's your movie? What's the story you're telling? What's the inciting incident? What are the challenges? What needs to be overcome? So that, what is the main character? How old are they? Are they male, female? What are they wearing? Where are they from? What's the story? You don't just stick a camera out a window and that's something. It's replete with an energy and emotion, and a story that, like Phil wants to tell, the feeling of being out where he is. Like, it's totally emotional and moody and unique, and you have to be there. People want their lattes first. It's like, bullshit. Get out and work. So
totally. Mark, I will say, I never incorporated motion in my work until the very first time I saw you speak. And since then, it's been, your work, your approach to photography has been instrumental in me pushing outside of my own personal boundaries, which I think is important for us to do as artists, as creatives, as photographers, to take something and throw out everything we thought we knew or everything that we've heard, and to really jump into a new age of exploring our own personal emotions. What drives us? When I look at my images, am I feeling something? If I'm not feeling something, then what are the chances that somebody else is going to feel something?
There you go. Yeah. What a powerful opportunity to have, to create something that someone can respond to, even in the smallest way or in the smallest numbers. It's powerful.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you guys see parallels in your own work? And I'm always curious, when you get a couple of heavy hitters together, it always interests me or piques my interest, to see how much photography conversation is on the table. Like, when you guys get together, are you guys talking about photography? Are you talking about industry stuff? Is that a small portion of the conversation, or is it more just life and just?
Don't tell him, Phil.
Yeah,
We'll get in trouble.
I'm being nosy here.
Go ahead, Phil. We'll see how you.
It's a lot of industry stuff, and but then the nice thing is, like, we'll go to the shows and Parry Photo every year and the APAD, and go around the shows together and look at the work. And it's kind of, walking around with yourself and Sage, Mark, has like opened my eyes up to photographers that I wouldn't necessarily have looked at before. And you kind of, whether you like it or not, you unconsciously take some of that creativity on board. It might be in the back, there, when you start approaching things differently.
Yeah. So
there's definitely that. And then there's, there's the industry stuff. Like, it's
a lot.
Really great. It's such a hard business, like ridiculously. The chances of making it in this industry are like so small. And it's great when you have people around you that you can bounce ideas off of. Like, you've tried something, this worked well for you, and you can kind of collaborate a little bit, and it kind of, like, you bring yourselves up. I found that really, like, invaluable working, with Mark and Sage and other people. But
yeah, it's really my answer is that we can speak honestly to each other without fear of that conversation going any further. And it's very difficult to find that confidence in someone and respect for someone else, because we have stuff to say. And it's like, we can't tell everybody what we're feeling under all circumstances. And it's a very powerful thing. I say this all the time, like, you get a few of us together. I won't mention any other names, but it's very powerful when say Phil and I and 2-3 other people, similar position, get together because we have insight that is not readily available. And it's really important. And a lot of times it's just, just talking. I'm trying to avoid using bad language, but we just, talking about shop, just sort of, how'd you like, whatever, Perry Photo or Tokyo or what, just, comparing notes. And we know that from our friendship and our time, just hanging, that we can, say things that reverberate and make sense, right, Phil? Like, that, like you said about Sage, like she's got an encyclopedic knowledge of photography and art. And it's like that, while we're doing something, she's doing something else, like at Perry Photo. And this is valuable stuff, so I think again, circling back to the original question about like adding more people, it's like you really, I don't think you can, Derek. I mean, you can get support,
it's very tough.
I mean, you guys understand each other, and you guys understand you're at the same point in your careers and in the industry where you understand, Phil, you understand what Mark is going through. Mark, you understand what Phil's going through. There's no veil that you have to pull back. There's no like, right. Oh, did I speak out of turn, or am I addressing something that's way above what he's doing, or so you guys, it's almost like this openness where, like you said, Mark, the trust, that's huge in this day and age, especially. It's like, joke around, it's like there's always cameras on, there's always a mic on every conversation you have. It's like you got to worry, but I think you guys are on that level where it's like there's a mutual respect, but also a mutual appreciation for what you guys are each doing on a day-to-day basis.
Like I know how hard they work and how hard Mark works, and like watching, I think we did our first show together in probably 2017, something like that. We were part of a group show, and watching how far you've come in those years as well is like pretty incredible. Like it's always something new's coming out. Like I always know you guys have got something coming up. It's taken me a little bit longer to get there. I think you obviously you have a great team. It's very to the point, it's very, very difficult to find good people that you can work with. It's like I really struggle with trying to find people. Like it's going to cost you money. Let's put it that way. It's, people that are like, I was chatting with someone about this the other day. Why is it so hard to find someone who's driven and they're as invested as you are? And the person said, because they're doing it themselves.
Yeah, it's again, it goes back to like family. Certain people, there are bonds and friendships and family sort of structure that is hard to come by. Going back to the cycling analogy, like if Phil and I are at the front of the pack, and I look to him and I say, "Let's go," and he'll nod, right, and we'll what they call jump, go off the front. I know Phil is going to pull his weight, like when I get tired and have to pull, off and be on his wheel, he's not going to just take the ride and then, all right, dude.
I've raced against lots of guys that do that as well.
No, they do that. Yeah.
There'll people out there that will just ride your wheel and hope that you take them to the end. And there's
so they're set up for the sprint and you're dying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's, that, if I tell Phil something, he's not telling anybody. It's, and so it's that type of thing, just that honesty is really what it is, and integrity. And it's very valuable. So we help each other that way because we learn things, and we learn about things that may be happening shortly or just happened. And that's why we, keep up. Mostly we just like to just hang out a little bit every once in a while when we can, but it's critical, again, going back to just the work ethic. Like it's just not going to happen unless people stop scrolling and get out and shoot and improve, work on what your story is, what your movie is, as I say, and it's got to be day and night. It's not about, the clubs and the dinners and, you got to work, man, like these days,
I think as well, it's like, it seems to, from all the teaching and all the talks I've done, everyone's always saying, well, what do you think about the rule of such and such? And it's always the rule of such and such, or what about this rule? Or I've heard in the past that you should do it some way. It's like, why are photographers so determined to hinder themselves from moving forward by keep on imposing rules?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Like, other art forms are not like that.
Yeah.
But we seem so determined to hold ourselves back. It's like, screw the rules, go make your own thing.
Yeah.
Create. How are you going to have the next movement if you're following someone else's rule the whole time? Go do your thing. I see it where, like, there's certain photographers that I know where other people have gone and copied their style. You're a clone of somebody else, something else that already exists that's better than you. Go do your thing. Make your mark.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. I'll say something that'll shake up a lot of people's thinking. I do a lot of, as Phil knows, a lot of studying of the neurobiology of sight and cognitive psychology, that what affects our vision. But one thing that's really important is that they've discovered fairly recently, I mean, they are the scientists, the medical doctors who do this work, that when you see something, right? You look out the window, you see something, those impulses go to your memory first before vision. Everything goes to memory first before you see it in your brain. They've been able to track this now. And so we are subject to all that we see. Now, for instance, if we sit there and scroll on Instagram, all that stuff you're seeing, every frame, every picture is going to your memory and then sight. This is a problem because your memory is being, homogenized by seeing the images of all these other people. So it's like, it's derivative upon derivative upon derivative, where it should be. Now, I spend a lot of time there because I want to know what other people are doing, but I also know what is going on so that it doesn't become me. And like you said, Phil, you got to be the person who is leading the pack, and, then people can learn from you, which we do a lot of teaching, and, it's very effective for people. But yeah, it's, people talk about focus, a lot. That's not focus. I said, well, who said things are supposed to be in focus? There's a whole world of out of focus, and people still people are, signing off of this, talk right now, because they're so embedded with what the technology is. Well, all emotion in human vision is in the out of focus areas of human vision. So now you talk about like selling a lens because it's super sharp. Yeah, it can be, but what does it do when it's not in focus? When it has a feeling, and you look at people like the greats like Paolo Roversi and Sarah Moon and Deborah Turbeville, all these people, like there's nothing in focus anywhere in that frame. And these people are in the museums all around the world and doing all the Dior, campaigns and this and that. There's something to it, But, and I use it just as an example. I don't care about the focus. I mean, I do for me, but the idea is just to, like Phil said, just open up your mind, just explore it, let things in that help you get to where it is you. So people recognize, people look at a photograph of Phil's, oh, that's Phil's. It's simple, right? That's where you want to be. Or you can just take, pictures of Johnny in the backyard, little Johnny in the backyard. If you smile, you're good. That's all you need, just to enjoy it, the journey, like we spoke about. But
I think that brings up a great point, and it kind of, when I look at you guys and I think about how the relationship and bond that you guys have, I think of, iron sharpens iron or steel sharpens steel. And I think that same mentality spills over into what you were just talking about, Mark, and just the social media experience. And it's kind of interesting when I heard you say that, everything goes to the memory, what we see goes to the memory first. it puts a lot of stuff in perspective. And when you think about that iron sharpens iron and who you surround yourself with, millionaires hang out with millionaires, business owners hang out with business owners, successful people surround themselves with other successful people, and all this minutia and all the garbage, for lack of a better word, that's floating out there on the internet and in social media, the more of that you open your eyes to and see. And now it's like, man, I'm over here like, it's all going to my memory. I got to start blocking and muting people on Instagram. But I guess there's something to be said for that, for what you're taking in. If you're really curating not just what you're putting out, but what you're seeing, that's going to then affect your mind as a creative.
I justify it, and I say, I can't say that like I am perfect or whatever at this, but I'm doing research. Like, it's in my field, it's important for me to know the science of, vision and stuff like that, and also what other people are doing, just to as more of like an intellectual or a research opportunity, just to see what's going on, not to add to, like, I'm thinking about it, that it technically goes to my memory first, but it's what I can do with the memory, right? So if I don't allow it to be mine and then copy some, wow, look at this picture I took, and it's like, dude, that's like what. There was a great show at one of the agencies here in New York, the photography agency, I think it was like Art and Commerce or something. During Fashion Week, they did a pop-up exhibition. This maybe 10 years ago. And it was all the stuff that everyone was doing then, but it was done 30 years ago, 50 years ago. All the technique that you saw was derivative of all the people who were in this exhibition, because they're the best of the best, how they're just being copied, and they were showing the originals. They didn't say anything. I was like, oh my God, this is so well curated, but yeah, so it's complex,
It is. Everything, there's so much stimuli out there. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he made an interesting point about just the mind in general. And we were talking about mental health and art. He's another photographer, and he said technology has far exceeded what the brain or the human body was meant to process. We're getting 24-hour news, 24-hour stimulus or stimuli. It's lights going off, it's bells, it's whistles, it's noises. There's stuff pulling us in every direction. How many times a day do you hear your cell phone ringer go off, and it's just in your head? Right. So it's constantly like, we're just constantly having stuff thrown at us. Does this affect us as artists? Or is it kind of like what you said, Mark, where it's like, hey, filter out the bad, but I'd rather be exposed to things. Is it better to be exposed to things and kind of just learn or teach yourself where the boundaries are?
I think it's a big debate, like as it relates to Phil. Phil goes out, he's not sitting, at the computer. He's out creating, right? So he's subject to the world around him, but it's not like he's subject to what other people are doing as much as somebody else might be. I know I spend more time, say, on, Instagram or Tumblr than Phil does. So there's one way of putting it, right, Phil? It's like he's going out and encountering the world all the time. So he's not walking by a storefront and seeing like photographs and being influenced by them in the window. You know what I mean? Like does that make sense, Phil? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's tough, because I really, the great work that I go to, okay, it tends to be less photography, more art. So I'll go to the museums. I'll go, I have my membership to MoMA, Met. I'll go walk around there. It's not that I'm like a great know the history of art, but I know what I like.
Yeah.
And I can look at work and go, all right, that's, I remember like when I saw my first Mondrian painting in the Guggenheim, I just totally gobsmacked. That's the stuff that I'll go to now. Photography, I hate to say it, like I can't go through the feed on Instagram. I find it really, really tough, because, there's people out there who will just flat out copy your work. My wife asked me, is like, don't you get upset about seeing this work that's just a direct copy of something that you've done. I said, well, I can't look at it because then it starts bringing me down. So I would rather just get out there, try to create, get better. Like, I know, you go by the logic of you're only going to get 5 to 10 great ones in your life. I'm trying to get the third one, So
I think your math is a little off there, Phil, though.
It's never, it's always like, I know that I can do better, and I can look at, I can look at old work and go where I could have done better than that. There's plenty of people out there that think they're God's gift right now. That to me is scary when you got, you're so full of it that you think you're, the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, how are you going to get any better then if you think you're great already? I know where I'm at, and I know that I need to get better, and I couldn't do what you do, Mark. I know that my limitations, I can't do that. But it keeps me going out there, and I find myself getting mad, waiting for things to happen when I'm out on the street, and I know there's an amazing picture there, and I'm just waiting for all these different things to click at the same time, and get that one killer image. Well, sometimes you just have a hell of a great time taking pictures. You come back and what you thought was great actually isn't.
The journey.
That happens. That happens. The other day we had a snowstorm coming in, and I'm sat on a bench for 2 hours on the West Side Highway at like 8 at night, waiting for a snowstorm to kick in. Middle of nowhere, no one else is around, just me sat there getting angry that the snow hasn't come.
It's that's the challenge of the street, and the challenge of art. A lot of what I do, I create, obviously, and you have to have the ability to put something of myself in it, and then it becomes art. But I think your numbers are wrong. I think that you have an immense number of great photographs, and this is not just blowing smoke, man. I've seen it, so but it's good that you think that way. That can't hurt you, get you out on the street. But it's you're doing exceptional work, and like I said, you're out there when people are sipping lattes, and I know every time I do, I got to pay for it. I know that someone's doing something. I thought that when I first started, like when I'd be at dinner, I would think oh shit, someone's in their studio now. Well, I'm just messing around on a date or something. And, but then I thought, well, but then I got, say the benefit of being better, maybe, I come to it with something, and, which is, proven to be true, that at least I've got something, to say and show or whatever. The constant, the research, the testing, there's so much testing of lenses, a different film stock, like a different, color combination. This is stuff that continues throughout your whole life and your whole career. It's funny because we've spoken about photography, but in this discussion, virtually nothing about technique. Which I think is important. I hope people hung in for this one to, learn some of the inside stuff.
Mark, how much does life outside of photography play into what goes on in your work? I mean, your maturation process as a person, your evolution as a person. Really, it's not like, okay, I'm an athlete, I'm putting my pads on and I forget everything when I go out on the field. As artists, right, it's inherent in us to be in tune to, okay, I'm depressed today, I'm listening to this music, and the combination of my depression and this music is going to bring something else out of me. Or I had a great day, and photography's the furthest thing from my mind because I'm just not feeling creative today, or I'm not feeling like I have it. How does what's going on outside of the camera and outside of photography play into what takes place when you're creating?
That's a great question, Derek. And I think, and such an important one, I am, human and, subject to emotions and ups and downs and this and that. I am never, ever bored. Number one, I don't think I've ever been bored. I understand the word and the concept and the whole thing, but I don't know, there's just too much going on for me to be bored. But the idea is, for me, it's about connection. It's all about the strength and the effectiveness of the connection, and providing a safe place for the subject, for my portraits or fashion work, so that I can get something that is truly unique by providing a safe place for them to communicate. I don't tell anybody what to do beyond, oh, can you stand over there? That's it. I let it just be. I don't say anything else. I just start taking pictures. And it's great because I use the Leica SL2S, and you put it in silent mode. And so like I start shooting if it's someone new and they're just doing their thing. And I'm like, okay, we're good. And they're like, wait, what? I said, no, we're good. I got that. You got, oh, I didn't know. Like, I know it's silent, the connection to people and non-judgment. Like, I don't judge people. And I think they feel that, so that they can just be themselves. I don't tell them where to put their hands or this or that, just sort of, and then you capture like an essence of them. That's the joy for me. Someone asked me, actually, it was in Paris this last year, a model I had worked, in the art sector a few times, and we're sitting on the couch. We had done shooting, everyone's sort of cleaning up and this and that, and she goes, "Why do you like working with me?" And I almost choked. I was like, "Oh shit, Jessica, what do you mean? I mean, we do great work together." I don't, I had to think about it, and what it came down to, which is this question you've asked me, like the connection to the world, is. I said to her, because I think we do something that other people can't do. You're allowing me a little piece of yourself that is translated in the photograph, and that's what I need. And you can't just go like, yo, can I get a little piece of you? I want to take your photograph. Like, so that level of intimacy, if you will, or, contact, is what's most important to me. Without it, I got nothing. I always say, whatever the talent is in front of my lens, I say, without you, it'd be that wall. I take a picture of that wall. They're like, oh, you're so humble and this and that. Well, I'm not that humble, but I said, but I need you. You know what I mean? You're the collaborator. Your essence is what it's about. So it's photography, in short, is my way of connecting with the world around me. That's all my life that I've been doing it. It's my way of interaction. It's my friendship with Phil, all the people I know, and is that connection. What means something, to me. And I'm very selective about who I work with on the art side, because if I don't have that, I got nothing. So
interesting. I mean, and it's kind of like you're curating your career in that regard.
Totally. Yeah. Poor Sage hears no so much every day and night. What about this person? What about that? Oh, does she look interesting? What about this? We were thinking about whether it's for a job or whatever, we just, I can speak about it. We just shot in Milan, a editorial for L'Officiel magazine on a designer, Ozzie Clark, from the 60s. So it's a 60s vibe thing. I flew someone from LA to Milan to do it because she's perfectly suited to capture that energy of the 60s, the free spirit, the breaking rules and this thing. And we just heard from the editor of the magazine just this morning, and it's like, oh my God, this is like the best thing I've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. And like, flattered or whatever. But it's those specific things that you need. Those are ingredients. You have to have them. So yes, curating, flying someone from LA to Milan. You'd think like, well, what all the agencies in Milan or nearby Paris or London or whatever. But
you're extra particular. I mean, you're getting exactly what you want and exactly who you want to work with.
Yeah.
Phil, you over there taking notes? Can you share those notes with me? I'm gonna need these.
He knows all this already. Yeah.
No, we're gonna get into some pictures. I've been waiting. There's some just beautiful work. I mean, you guys clearly are two of the best to do it. So I want to, we're gonna rotate here. I wonder who took this. If you guys are out there, let us know.
That's both of us, by the way, Phil.
Is this a collab?
No, it could be. That could be. There are lots of elements that are very much, Penman-like.
What do you think when you see, before we dive into this image, when you look at Phil's work, Mark, what does it say to you?
Says he's kicking ass like that. I love it because it's sort of like the idea of like someone copying him. It's like, see, he's so far ahead. When you see what he's done, recently, he's gone, man. He's a speck, on the horizon doing his thing. So you can try to catch him, but that'd be pretty stupid. If you want to like just practice technique or something like that, that's great. And you can even spend time with him, but when he has time. But yeah, it's you can tell, it's so easy to tell.
And I know light is the essence of photography, and I say this in looking at this image where it's just the light creates that drama for me. And Phil is one of those people that the very first time I walked the streets with Phil, it was light. Like that guy sees light. I'm like, wait, that right there. I'm looking, it's a sliver. It's like a 6-inch sliver of light on a crosswalk in a dingy part of the city that offers nothing to my eye. And then, film
texture.
See look,
character.
You see, and I look at, and I'm like, can I just see the back of your camera? Like, let me just see what were you looking at? And I look and I'm just like, okay, yeah, wow, I never would have seen that with.
Oh, it's going to cost me an absolute fortune to PayPal you two.
I keep checking. I'm not with Sage over here. I'm seeing where the money's coming in, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Did it hit my back? Mark,
I just want to make sure.
Let's dive into the photos. Talk to us about this image.
Honestly, and this, he's already paid for, so it's fine. But this is more Phil Penman than Mark DePaola, this image right here, which is very strange to say. But there are elements of design and control over where the eye goes, the contrast, right? The graphic, the geometry of it than me. I'm usually much looser and sort of deconstructing all that Phil is constructing. You know what I mean? That's sort of where I'm at. Very loose stuff. This one happens to be in focus and it has, like I said, design element and a tracking, program here, right? Which was, go ahead, Sage.
It's showing your technique.
Yeah, it's a technique. Sage is showing. It says it's showing my technique. I can do this all day long, but it's has more elements of Phil than it does Mark.
Interesting. Phil,
strange, but
you see yourself in this, Phil?
It's a beautiful picture. What more can I say?
Thank you.
No, it's really, what year was that taken, Mark?
That was like 2 months ago, and
yeah,
wow,
it's like vintage classic.
Yeah, well, it's
timeless.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you know what? Thank you. Sage is prompting me to say thank. I never hear compliments. But you see about the shaft of light, like you were just talking about there, and the sort of the selective focus, like it's almost if this person sort of walked in this and out it, where you and I might miss it, but Phil's waiting all day for it, So sensitivity to different things.
Totally, and it's as far as different as you guys' styles are, they both evoke emotion, and I think that's ultimately at the cornerstone of what we're talking about when we look at an image. It's like, do we like this image pops up on the screen? If you don't feel something, you're incapable of feeling. Like I look at it, it's just so much in the expression. And I know I've probably talked about this ad nauseum when I've had you on, Mark. Your images is always something like you just feel, you master that expression that you somehow manage to get out of people without all that direction that people put so much focus on posing and direction. And here you are just immersing yourself in the moment, setting your camera to how it needs to be to capture what you're feeling, and you just let it rip.
Yeah.
And there we go. This is a classic Penman shot right here. This has all the earmarks. Phil, talk to us about this image. Talk to us about how your approach to the streets have changed. I mean, Mark briefly touched upon going out there in 2020, but it's different. It's a different world out there in New
Yeah,
York.
it's coming back. Like for for a couple of years there, it's an absolute minefield walking out my door every day. I feel like it's getting better, definitely getting better. But for me, street photography, like I know a lot of people, like they go out together and they shoot together. I really can't. That's just not really my thing. But it can be very, very lonely. Even just being in the industry, it can be very, very lonely. So for me, like the nice moments are moments like this, when I get chatting with someone on the street. I'm doing a portrait of somebody, and usually, I'm approaching them for myself as well, like a conversation. And back, during the pandemic, the only people that were really on the street were, construction guys and the homeless people. So those were the people that I would talk to when I was out and about. This particular gentleman, I stopped him because I liked the mask. It was very, very patriotic. Usually those are things I'm kind of drawn to anyway. I got chatting with him and then I think like within 10 minutes, he pulled out that bag of weed to try to sell me, which I thought was quite amusing. Maybe years ago, but not anymore. But yeah, it was just, it was a good conversation. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to move on to the next image, but I do have a question that I want to throw out, because it comes from the wonderful Mr. John Kreidler, asking how important it is to both of you to create timeless imagery.
Ooh, very.
Is that something that factors in? And
Yeah.
Phil, in particular, with you being out on the street, just kind of on the flip side of that, just to throw in another angle to it, is if you can just talk briefly on capturing,
it's everything I want. That's everything. Yeah, that's it for me, is like capturing a timeless image that no one knows when it was taken. That's why shooting a lot of bad weather, because it's a great way of like losing the background. Even the stuff in like the steam with the umbrellas and stuff like that, it's just fun. If I can create an image that you look at it and you don't know whether it was taken in 1920 or 2022, for me, that's a goal. And also it's because it's the work that I enjoy shooting. It's, again, goes back to the journey and the process. It's got to be enjoyable to me. So, maybe you've seen that picture before, but I had a hell of a lot of fun taking that particular image. Like, to me, like this, this one on screen, this is a very timeless image to me. It's like very classic. There's nothing wrong with contemporary, but it's, I got to capture my thing.
Yeah, I think that, the timeless for me is not necessarily time, but the metaphor of the thumbprint. Timeless is where it's uniquely yours, Phil, for instance. Like, it's an image that will stand the test of time because it's got your thumbprint. And that's what the whole art world is people want to collect stuff that is unique out there, and there are a limited number of examples of it, and that it has that type of impact, So yeah, timeless, not necessarily reflecting a time, but putting a stamp on it by our thumbprints. Yeah, the images, this is the black and white with the girl. Everyone has the same image, right? So this was taken with the Leica Thambar, which was a lens that was designed in, I think it was 1932 or 33, and then reintroduced, I think in 2014. And it's a pictorialist, like a portrait lens, that gives you, that could be considered timeless because it doesn't have the sharpness of the modern optics, although you stop down a couple stops and it certainly does. But yeah, it's a little bit mysterious. For me, this is an example of like the emotionality of the out of focus. Is like, what more information do you need than this? You know what I mean? There's design there. It's a woman. She's, looks the way she does, and evokes a feeling without. I say, like the fallen soldier, Kappa's fallen soldier, with the most iconic images of all time. And I said to someone who's a very famous curator, I said, do you need to render the eyelashes on the fallen soldier? And she was like silent. And I was like, you're right. What, she said, it sort of perfectly sums it up. It's like, what information do you need to tell the story, that, timeless or otherwise? But
I think, and we talked about earlier with Phil, you being inspired by non-photography, going to museums and looking at actual art. And I think this is a perfect parallel to it, Mark. When you talk about what's out of focus, how many people are going into a museum and looking at a painting and saying, wow, that's really sharp, that's really clear,
Right?
You're
You
it's
look at Rothko, right? And like,
exactly.
Oh yeah, I love how sharp the black bit is.
yeah,
you're not talking about like stroke size and line, and it's a completely different set of criterion where you're really just letting your brain absorb what's in front of you, and you're not picking it apart.
I mean, this is the Impressionists. That was blasphemy, they're in that period, and the color field folks, like the sort of color field work of like Pollock or Rothko, and it's all about emotionality, just creating something. It doesn't matter what it is. Also, I find that painters are the best photographers, by the way. See, this is fantastic.
Look at this. I mean,
it's crazy.
It is. I mean, this, every time I come across this image, it stops me.
I sort of wish the motorcycles were stopped, though. I think it would give a better, sort of, you can see what type of motorcycle it was and stuff.
As long as they're sharp, right? Yeah, this is
megapixels is that?
Yeah, this shooting in the snow as well, and also like I came across the work of Alexei Tidorenko a few seasons back, and kind of got inspired by some of his work. So I started trying to think about, like, you don't want to copy their work, but are there ways that you can like inject that style into maybe some of yours? Like, I like using playing with motion, because you can tell a story that way. You wouldn't be able to tell the story if this was like the motorbike was stopped pin sharp, per se. It wouldn't have the same effect.
Even just the continuation of the lines where you have the crosswalk, there's that break. For me, this is like like the parting of the Red Seas. It's like you see the image and it leads your eye right into the solemn nature of the police officer standing there, and just everything. It's the little attention to details. I think that does it for me.
This must have been a funeral, right? This
was very, I just stumbled across this. It was snowing that day, so I went out just to shoot. And then, came along Fifth Avenue, and of course there were offices like literally as 20, 30 blocks along. I'd never seen anything like that. So it was just, I was going around shooting a few different angles, but I wanted to try to capture something a little bit different from what maybe everybody else was capturing.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's
kind of
great.
happy with this one.
Do you make it a point when you go out, Phil? Do you ever, especially being based in New York, there's always something going on. Do you ever make it a point like, oh, hey, this is going on today, I'm going to go out and kind of wander and see if I can come up with anything? Or
you know what? The only time I've tried that was like it was when I was covering news, and the everyday was like that, right? This protest is happening, go cover that protest. I went this year for the first time. I went to Coney Island to cover like the polar bears on New Year's Day, and I was like, why am I here? Like, everyone else is here. This goes against everything I stand for, and it's like I'm getting the same images as everyone else. I need to be going out there and finding the things that other people aren't shooting, because then that's when you get the unique stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, I it's harder because you've got to bump into stuff. but in New York City, there's plenty of crazy stuff happening all the time. So I've been fortunate that I have bumped into, you know, spacemen walking down the street or guys walking turkeys.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you got to get yourself away from everybody else.
Totally.
Yeah, I love this one.
I love this.
Yeah.
I think Sage like set me up here. This is my work. It's Phil's like Phil. Like she's nodding her head here.
This was intentional.
No, totally. It's just funny though, because I'm recognizing it, you know. Yeah, this is, I had clients from Italy over, and this one stylist, art director, the whole time she kept on looking at the, you know, the news, the weather forecast, and you know, saying to Sage, because she's too afraid to say it to me, and saying to Sage, like, well, it's going to rain, it's going to rain. Say, don't worry about it, Mark's got this. And yeah, but it's going to rain, what are we going to do? There was like 20 something people from Italy, and like, you know, the cobbles down in Soho, you know, I know that there's this big overhang, and so whenever Sage would say to me, you know, this gal would ask him about the weather, I said, no, we got it, you know. And so like, it's some of my favorite stuff, because it's just, you shoot, you know what I mean? Like, that's what you have to do. Like, I'm a professional. Like, at the end of the day, I got to have something, you know. So you don't care. We didn't have umbrellas or anything. We just went out there and continued shooting. So this is the result of that. So.
Mark, I've never asked you this, and I've wanted to, and I was going to let it slip again and have another interview with you and not get this asked. When you're working with models, your style is clearly very unique. The way you work, very unique, very different from what a lot of these models are probably exposed to.
Yep.
Is this a discussion that you're having with the model? Because, or do you want them to be familiar with your style? Does that not even factor in?
Does not I don't even want them to know I'm shooting. Like, no, there are collaborators, you know, because of the curation, Derek, like we talked about a little bit. They know when they work with me, they're creating something that is for me, right? And they benefit from if it's good, and you know, so they typically like the work, so that, you know, make money and whatever. But you know, like on a fashion assignment. But no, they just want to be part of something that, you know, is published or may end up in a book or in a museum, and you know, you get a bit of a reputation, and people like to be around it. You know, yeah, it's. Like, you know, for me, I like working with really talented models, sometimes, you know, on the commercial end of things, you know, because they bring with it something unique, their own uniqueness, you know. So no, it's not a collaboration. We collaborate, but it's not an artistic collaboration where they're like, oh, I want to be on the other side of the street. I'm like, not so much. Yeah. So.
Okay, so it's like one image feeds right into the next.
Oh, totally. This is a great curation, Sage.
This whenever I think steam, Phil, you forever, whenever I go out,
I love it.
Whenever I see steam, I'm like, that's Penman right there. It's to the point I can't even take a picture of steam because I have people coming up on my Instagram feed like,
that's the plan.
You trying to be Penman here?
Killing dreams one day at a time.
I can't photograph steam anymore. Mark, don't ever try to incorporate steam. You're going to be.
No, I do my own steam. It's, you know, because what Phil is doing is creating an emotional, you know, interest in a photograph by what's out of focus. And so he's going for atmosphere to create a dynamic emotional image. And it's like, that's just consistent with the way we see. There are people who may do a similar thing on the street, this and that, everything's tack sharp. Sorry, folks, we don't see that way. So, yeah, no, I love it.
It's not that there's not anything wrong with it. It's just, it's your thing. And I want to create something else.
Right.
So, you know, for me, it's like, it's not that the steam is the picture, is the steam helps me lose the background so that I focus on just those people that I want.
That's the point.
That's all it is. It's just how can I incorporate. It's the same with snow, with rain. It's like, it's just one layer of the picture. It's not, it's never the picture. It's just part of a picture.
Right. Yeah. It's we're translating 3 dimensions into 2, and it takes those elements that can be layered or feel like you're in an environment. You're more subject to it.
Yeah, I want you to feel like you're there when you see the picture.
Right.
We do. I mean, I think you're a master of emotion between what you do with light, and that's a great way to put it, Mark. Taking the 3 dimension, putting it into 2 is not as easy as one might seem. And I think that's where you incorporate in the different elements of there's this depth or lack thereof sometimes that is really what sets the image apart.
Yeah, largely because everything is in focus for everybody. And that's the way camera lenses and cameras are marketed by, you know, they're attached to this sharp, you know, where Leica will make, you know, 6 different 50 millimeter lenses, you know, for the M camera, for instance, at the same time. You know, they're onto something because they render differently, and they think that's important for various, you know, variety of storytellers, right? So, yeah. This was Gucci shoot in, I forget where, in Paris. And it was funny because we were preparing everything in a hotel room at one of these very high-end hotels. And the first shot, sort of funny, the first shot I did, I don't think it's in this selection, but there was this very oddly lit sort of red light in a bathroom. And there was sort of extensive hair and makeup and styling and stuff. And they were like, okay, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, you know, instead of like going out, you know, in Paris, I was like, well, I'm going to shoot this first one in the bathroom. There was a beauty shot. And they're like, what? There's like no light in there. I said, no, I got this. Don't worry about it. But this was part of that shoot. And this is just a little couch thing in the corner of the room. It's just, you know, creating an environment. Yeah.
This is a Penman. This is your spot, man. Again, this is one area of the city I avoid. I'm like, nope, I gotta ask Phil permission to go down there.
My favorite spot, definitely. This was actually the morning of a Leica Academy class. When I was teaching, and I'm like, oh man, this is killing me. Because when you're taking 12 people out, it's not like, hey, look at me take pictures. It's, you know, you're working with them, you're helping them get pictures. But I was like, I gotta get one for myself. So this was that one.
It's great.
You know, it's just, again, it's just like, it was one of those rare days in the city where we just like, you couldn't see downtown at all. It was like visibility, you know, 100 feet. Yeah, no, I love this one.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, this was for a New York designer, shot in New York, and they didn't want me to do this shot. They often don't want me to do what I want to do, but I'll always do what they want. And then I was like, you know, for her, I said, just lie over there. And the designer was standing right beside me. Yeah, but we, you know, I was like, hey, just hold on. Let me just like, give me 30 seconds, you know. So this is one of the 30 seconds or a fraction of a second. But
is that something where you're taking it for you, Mark, or is it where you're going to say, is it more the approach of, let me just do this and then I'll show you what my vision was?
Yeah, I always just cover what they want if they are so inclined. They give up after a while. This particular designer, very famous designer, she is very much a control freak, and you know, and that's fine. But after a while, she got so, you know, bored of chasing me around. She said, you know, I think what you're doing is like better than what I want. So just, I give up. Just do, you know, this wasn't on this particular shoot. It was a shoot before that. But this is like literally there was a backdrop, you know, 10 feet camera left of here. And I just said, oh, just, you know, after we finished the shoot and got it, then it was just, it just lie there. And I took maybe 10 frames. And this one, because this is, to me, life. It's real. This is the way people are. They don't just, like Avdon said, they don't just like stand in front of a white background. You know, people move about, you know.
That's a great point. And I think, again, Mark, that's your work and your approach for me help me get away from so much noise. In when you think, I can think of jobs that I've been on where it's like, okay, this is everything I have seen, and everything fashion related, or everything editorial, everything commercial is over here. And then I'll think of your approach and it's like, wait, but Mark's done this. And it's like, this is the perfect example. It's for a designer, right? How many people are going to, the dress is going to be the star, the fashion's going to be the star. And it's like, oh, if you can't see the texture of the dress, it's not a successful shot. And so many, but then you look at these images and what does it look like? Turn the page, looks like anything else. There's no emotion. It doesn't draw you in. It's really, it's like you're seeing something that is not there when I'm looking at your image versus looking at something there. And it's like, okay, yeah, cool. What does it do?
I want it to be aspirational. I want people to see an image and go like, I want to look like that. Like as a lifestyle, to be able to relax on a couch, a couture dress. I want to be myself, for the girl, the woman. And that's what I want to project is a lifestyle. And I'm not a lifestyle photographer, but in fashion, I want it to be more documentary, where it's just a moment. And this I rather like. This one.
I wish there was more of an approach to that, especially when you talk about gear. It's inevitable. It always comes up. Everything always comes back to gear.
Yeah. And I love it too. Gear.
This speaks louder to me than, something that, it's like if you were pitching a lens, a camera, anything, and it's like, oh, well, it's got to show what it does. It's got to show, the detail and the texture and this and that. It's like, no, I want to look at a damn good image. If I look at a damn good image, that's going to sell me on something way more than, because I'm buying the emotion, I'm buying the feeling. I want that to be injected into my creative process rather than, wow, if I really zoom into 300%, I can see every fiber.
Yeah, this is one of the sharpest lenses made for the format ever. And I make it mine. In other words, I don't try to show what it can do on a test chart or for somebody else. I want to show what it does for me. This is the 35, the Leica M lens, the 35 Apo Summicron, which that thing like is just ungodly, sharp, but it doesn't have to be. It can be very subtle and delicate also. So it's about what you do with it, like a Formula One driver. Like everyone drives differently and they're driving a similar type of car, but you got to make it yours. So the designers design the car around the driver to get its best attributes for ending up at the front. Wow.
Well, again, I mean, and this is where I love just it's reflection, motion. It's kind of, it draws you in. I love when an image makes me want to figure it out. There's looking at an image and being like, what the hell am I looking at?
Oh, this one's
AI. This was this
one's AI.
It's a great, yeah. You punched it in.
Yeah. No, this is, this is like an experiment. I'll do like a lot of stuff like handheld, long exposure stuff where I'll find whatever there is in a room to kind of balance the camera on and use it as a tripod. So this is kind of like a 6-second exposure, something like that, where, I'm shooting with like the 75mm. I'll focus up on the building in the background, and then I'm watching shapes play out in front of me. And I'm trying to get they're not really moving that much. So even at 6 seconds, that they're watching the view. So there's minimal movement, but it's enough that it gives me like that ghost-like look.
See, and I look at this, and Mark, I think Sage and Phil got together behind our backs and are playing it because I see Mark DePaola in here. It's like I see the style. I can see, just like there's emotion there, that motion, that movement. It's like one of your images came together with one of Phil's images and had a baby.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's it's definitely, there's a sort of collective consciousness, like creating an environment, a movement. This is a beautiful example. I would be proud to have this as mine. Like, this is fantastic. But yeah, I think we have that, commonality, technique wise of creating, like, again, going back to the science, there's a thing that everybody should make a note right now and look it up. Sorry to be this way, but there's a thing that's called persistence of vision. Persistence of vision. Look it up and learn it, because it's very important. And this is, tangential to that theory, the persistence of vision. We retain an image for roughly 1/10 of a second and then go on to the next image. Like when we see a movie, it's, shot at, standard is 24 frames a second. The shutter is open for a 50th of a second. There's blur, but we retain an image for longer than the blur, so it doesn't look like blur. But in stills, we can make a blur. So if we are under like a 1/10 of a second, we can see the blur. But like when we watch a movie, half of the movie, the screen is black. I know it sounds strange. Just look up persistence of vision, and you retain an image for a certain amount of time, while we are really seeing at like a 50th of a second. It's sort of any movement can be detected in that. So, but our brain is interpolating that and connecting the images where we're not retaining the blur. We're going faster than that. So this touches on that in terms of, again, dimensionality, 3 dimensions into 2, and doing something that's comfortable for us. We see blur in motion, but our brain corrects it. So this is a perfect example, a little teaching moment for this. And it's engaging, and you wonder, what are they thinking? Are they together? What's going on? Like, there's a feeling, there's a story there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, look, we didn't get to everything. I want to thank you guys for staying a little bit over. I know I stretched out here. I didn't even scratch the surface of where I thought we would. We all got together as a 3 virtually, and we're like, let's just do it. Let's just rip it. We're gonna go. It's gonna go where it's gonna go. And you guys came up, nothing less of excellent on this. Just constant gems being dropped.
Yeah. It's cool. It's fun.
Thanks again.
It was good. Now, I want to send a huge thank you to both Mark and Phil, and obviously the team at Leica for making this happen.
Yeah.
Sage behind the scenes, and everybody else who's been instrumental in making this happen, and for everything you guys do on a daily basis, because these are the kinds of talks that we get more out of this than somebody coming on and dropping bullet points and talking about settings and all of that. And look, we weave the gear and we weave kind of some technique in, but really there's so much more to creating art that stops you in your tracks and that makes you want to talk about it and think about it and inspire other people to create. And this is exactly the kind of work that we want to see. So I want to send a huge thank you to you guys for always being willing to come on and share with our viewers and give me, because I'm taking notes over here. I get free game out of this.
Yeah, pleasure for me too. And obviously thanks to Leica and B&H for providing a forum for us to be able to express ourselves in a different way. Like Phil and I do a lot of teaching, and it's obviously important to us or we wouldn't do it. So it's an honor and a pleasure. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Totally.
Thank you, everyone.
Bill, Mark, thank you guys. A huge thank you again to all of our viewers out there and our host for today's event, Leica. That's it. Another rendition of the B&H virtual event space is in the books. Catch y'all next time.